My name is Dorothy. I'm 80 years old today, November 15th, 2025, and I need to tell this story before I lose the courage again. Before I begin, please, if you can, leave a like on this video, subscribe to the Grandma's Diary, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. What city? What state? I want to know if there are more people like me who spent their whole lives thinking they knew someone and discovered they didn't know anything at all. Take a deep breath, my dear, because what I'm about to tell you today shook every piece of my soul. This morning I woke up alone, as I have every day for the past 25 years. My husband Walter died in May 2000. He was only 55 years old. Pancreatic cancer took him in 4 months. 4 months that flew by and lasted an eternity at the same time. You know how it is? You watch the person you love wasting away in front of you, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing you can do. I married Walter in 1970. I was 23 years old, he was 25. Back then, we met at a community dance here in town. I had come from West Virginia looking for work in Chicago. He was a factory worker at a textile mill, a hard-working man, serious, a man of few words. But when he smiled, my God, when he smiled, it seemed like the whole world got brighter. We got married 6 months later. My mother said I was crazy, that it was too fast, that I barely knew the man, but I was in love and he seemed to be everything I had always dreamed of. Honest, hard-working, affectionate in his own way. He wasn't much of a talker, but he was present. You know that type of man you feel is there holding things together, taking care of everything? We rented a tiny little house on the south side, 2 rooms and a kitchen, bathroom outside, but it was ours. I worked as a seamstress at home, taking work from the factories, and he worked from 7 in the morning to 7 at night. We saved every penny. In 1972, 2 years after we were married, Walter came home one day with a different smile. I was making rice and beans on the wood stove when he came in. He grabbed me by the waist and said, "Dot, we're going to have our own house." I almost dropped the pot. "What do you mean, Walter? We barely have money for—" I received an inheritance, he cut me off. My uncle, who lived in Texas, died, left me good money, enough for us to buy a house. I cried with joy. I hugged him so much he complained. 3 months later, we were moving into a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. My goodness, a house with a yard, my dear, with a cherry tree. I felt like the richest woman in the world. In 1975, our daughter was born, Stella. The name was his idea. He said she was the star of his life. I was jealous, but the good kind of jealous, you know? Seeing the man you love loving so deeply the fruit of you both. The years went by. Walter got a better job as a supervisor at a metalworks. We were never rich, but we never lacked anything. Stella studied at private school, went to college for education. Walter and I were so proud of her. He was a wonderful father, serious, but wonderful. He took Stella to the park every Sunday, helped her with homework. When she turned 15, he cried at the party. Cried. Walter, who was hard as stone, cried watching his daughter becoming a young woman. Life was good to us. It wasn't perfect. We fought sometimes like every couple. He was stubborn, too quiet when I needed him to talk. But I loved that man, loved him with every cell in my body. In 1999, Stella met a young man, Robert, last name Meadows. A handsome boy, polite, worked as a civil engineer. Stella was head over heels in love. They dated for 6 months, and he asked her to marry him. I remember the day they came to tell us. It was a Sunday afternoon. Stella was radiant. Robert asked for Walter's blessing in the traditional way. I expected Walter to be happy, emotional, but he went white. White as paper. "Meadows," he repeated. "Your last name is Meadows?" "Yes, sir," Robert answered. "Robert Meadows." Walter was silent, a heavy, uncomfortable silence. I nudged him under the table. He cleared his throat and said, "Welcome to the family, son." But I knew my husband. Something had changed in him at that moment. He became different. In the following days, he was strange, quiet, quieter than normal. He looked at Stella with a sadness I didn't understand. One night I asked, "Walter, didn't you like Robert?" "I did," he said without looking me in the eye. "So why are you like this?" "Like what?" "Distant, sad." He hugged me that night, hugged me tight and said in my ear, "I love you, Dorothy. You know that, right? I've always loved you. You and Stella are everything to me." I thought that was strange, but I didn't think much of it. Men have these things, right? They get emotional when they see their daughter growing up, leaving home. The wedding was scheduled for November 2000, but in January, Walter started feeling sick, terrible pains in his stomach. He held out for 2 weeks before agreeing to go to the doctor. When he came back from the appointment, he was gray. "What happened? What did the doctor say?" I asked with my heart already tight. "I need to do some tests." The tests confirmed it. Pancreatic cancer, advanced stage. The doctor gave him 6 months, maximum. My world collapsed. Our daughter was getting married in 10 months, and her father was dying. Walter asked us not to tell Stella at first. "Let her be happy a little longer, then we'll tell her." But he got worse quickly, very quickly. By March, he couldn't get out of bed anymore. Stella found out. She cried so much, so much. She wanted to cancel the wedding, but Walter wouldn't let her. "You're going to get married, girl," he said from the bed with that thin, weak voice. "You're going to get married and be happy. It's the only thing I want." In April, Walter called me into the bedroom. Stella had gone to work. He was so thin, so different from the strong man I'd known. He took my hand with those hands of his that were just bone and skin and said, "Dot, pay attention to what I'm going to tell you. Talk, my love." In our bedroom, in the closet on top, in the left corner, there's a small safe. You've never seen it because I always hid it among things. I frowned. "Safe? What safe?" "It's a small metal safe. The key is taped to the back of it." "And what's inside?" He squeezed my hand with a strength I didn't know he still had. "Don't open it now. Promise me. Don't open it now." "Walter, you're scaring me." "Promise me, Dorothy." He was agitated, anxious. "Promise you'll only open this safe when you turn 80 years old. Not before, not after. When you turn 80. I was confused, scared. But why? What's in there? "The truth," he said, and he started to cry. Walter, who I'd seen cry maybe 3 times in his life, was there crying like a child. The truth about who I am, about who I was, about everything. "Then tell me now, Walter, if there's something I need to know." "No," he almost shouted. "Not now, not now. You need to live your life, take care of Stella, see her get married, see the grandchildren grow up. You need to live all of this before knowing, because when you know, Dot, you're going to hate me. You're going to hate every day you lived with me." I was crying too. "I'll never hate you. Never." "You will," he said. "When you open that safe, you will. Then I'll never open it. You have to open it at 80 years old." "Why?" "Because there are things in there that you'll need to do. Things I didn't have the courage to do. Promise me, Dorothy, for our daughter, for our life together. Promise me." I was shaking, but I promised. What else could I do? The man I loved was dying in front of me, asking me for a promise. I promised. "Not before, not after," he repeated. "When you turn 80, write it down somewhere. Don't forget." "I won't forget." He relaxed on the bed. He was silent for a while, then said quietly, "I loved you, Dot, the way I knew how to love. It might not have been the right way, but I loved. You and Stella, you were the only good thing in my entire life." Walter died on May 23rd, 2000. 2 days before, he made Stella promise she would get married anyway, that she wouldn't cancel anything. She promised, crying. The wedding happened in November, as planned. It was beautiful, it was sad, it was everything at the same time. I cried through the whole ceremony. The chair that was supposed to be Walter's was empty, but Stella was radiant, and I knew that's what he had wanted. After the funeral, I looked for the safe. I found it exactly where he said. A metal safe, small, about the size of a shoebox, heavy. The key was taped to the back with electrical tape, just like he said. I held that safe in my hands and trembled. The temptation to open it was enormous, but I had promised, and I'd always been a woman of my word. I put the safe in my own closet. I wrote on a piece of paper, "Open on November 15th, 2025, my 80th birthday. Promise to Walter." I taped the paper to the safe. The years went by. Stella had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. I became a grandmother. Life went on, but that safe was always there, in the back of the closet, waiting. There were times I wanted to open it, times I grabbed the key, but I always remembered Walter's face, that desperation of his, and I put it back. At 80 years old, I repeated to myself, he asked at 80 years old. And today is November 15th, 2025. I woke up early. My grandchildren came to wish me happy birthday. Stella made lunch at my house, cake, the whole family together. It was beautiful. But the whole time I was thinking about that safe. When everyone left, it was already getting dark. I locked the front door, went to the bedroom, opened the closet, got the safe. My hand was shaking so much I could barely remove the tape holding the key. When I finally managed, I sat on the edge of the bed, just looking at that closed piece of metal. 25 years. 25 years I waited for this moment. I put the key in the lock, took a deep breath, and turned. The lid of the safe opened with a dry click. And what did I see inside? My dear, what I saw inside changed everything I thought I knew about my life. The first thing I saw when I opened that safe was money. It wasn't ordinary money, no. They were old bills, yellowed by time, old dollars from the 60s, the kind that don't look like the ones today. They were in bundles, tied with rubber bands that were already dry, brittle. I picked up one of the bundles, and the rubber band broke. The bills scattered in my lap. They were $100 bills, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. I have no idea how much that was worth back then, but it was a lot of money. Old money, kept for decades. My heart raced. Why had Walter kept money like this? Why had he never told me? We struggled in the first years of marriage. There were months when we didn't have enough food on the table, and he had this money hidden. I took the bundles out of the safe. There were 6 in all, heavy. Under the money was an old wooden cigar box. I opened it carefully because the wood was fragile. Inside were photographs. The first photo I picked up made me freeze. It was Walter, but not the Walter I knew. It was a young Walter, very young, must have been about 20, 22 years old. He was standing in front of a bar, smiling at the camera. But it wasn't a happy smile. It was a crooked smile, kind of arrogant. He had his arm around another man I'd never seen in my life. I looked at the photo carefully. Walter's clothes were different. Bell-bottom pants, patterned shirt, that 60s style. His hair was longer, messy. He had a cigarette in his hand. Walter never smoked, at least not while I knew him. I picked up another photo. He was sitting at a bar table with 3 men, all young, all with unfriendly faces. There were bottles of whiskey on the table. One of the men was holding something in his hand that looked like a gun. I brought the photo closer to my eyes, trying to see better in the dim light of the room. It was a gun. Yes, a revolver. My breath caught in my throat. I looked at more photos. Walter inside an old car. Walter leaning against a graffitied wall. Walter always with these men I'd never seen. Always with that face that wasn't the face of the man I knew. It was someone else, a stranger. I put the photos aside with my hand shaking. Under them were newspaper clippings, several carefully cut and saved. I picked up the first one. It was a page from the Chicago Tribune, yellowed, brittle. The date at the top said March 18th, 1967. The headline was in large letters, "Bank robbery ends in shootout, security guard killed." I read the entire article. My hands were shaking so much the paper was wobbling. The article said that 4 armed men had invaded a Bank of America branch in downtown Chicago. They overpowered the employees, filled 2 bags with money, but when they were leaving, the security guard fought back. There was shooting. The security guard, a 43-year-old man named Anthony Meadows, was shot in the chest and died instantly. The robbers fled in the confusion. The police had few leads, no suspects identified. Meadows. The last name hammered in my head like a bell. Meadows. The last name of my daughter's husband, the father of my grandchildren. No, it couldn't be. It was a coincidence. It had to be a coincidence. Meadows is a common last name. There are tons of them out there. But my hands were already picking up the second clipping, dated March 20th, 1967. Family asks for justice for security guard's death. There was a small, grainy photo. The dead man, Anthony Meadows. The article said he left a wife and a 15-year-old son. He'd worked as a security guard for 10 years. He was the family's only support. Third clipping. Police still without leads on robbers. Fourth clipping. Security guard's widow struggles. Fifth clipping, from 1968, a year later, bank robbery case remains unsolved. I was crying. Tears fell on the old paper, staining the already faded ink. Why had Walter kept these news articles? Why? But deep down, deep in my soul, I already knew. I just didn't want to believe it. Under the clippings was a notebook, one of those old-school notebooks with a blue hard cover, already worn out by time. I opened to the first page. The handwriting was Walter's. I recognized it immediately. That slightly crooked handwriting slanted to the left. At the top of the page was written, 1966, Chicago. I started to read. I arrived in Chicago 3 months ago. I'm living in a rooming house on the west side. I share a room with 4 other guys. I came from Philadelphia running. I can't go back there. I did something stupid. Got in a fight with a guy who had friends in the police. They told me if I didn't disappear, things would get bad for me. So I disappeared. In Chicago, nobody knows me. Here I'm just one more. I got a job on a construction site. The pay is terrible, but it's enough to eat. At night, I play pool at Zeke's bar. That's where I met Tino, Billy, and Jake. They're different. They have money, nice clothes, watches. Tino called me to talk the other day, said he's putting together a business deal, something big. Said he needs trustworthy people, people who have nothing to lose. People like me. I skipped some pages. My heart was racing too much. I needed to know. I needed to understand. January 1967. Tino explained the plan. It's a bank. He worked as a janitor there for 6 months, knows everything inside, knows the schedules, the cameras, where the vault is. It'll be me, him, Billy, and Jake. 4 only. We split the money in 4 equal parts, and each one disappears to a different place. Tino said there's at least $200,000 in that bank. If we split it, that's $50,000 each. That's money to live for years without working. I know it's wrong. My mother raised me and my siblings in church. She always said stealing is a mortal sin. But my mother's not here anymore to see her son sleeping in a borrowed bed, eating leftovers. My mother's not here to see that the world is unfair, that there are people who are born with everything and people like me who are born with nothing. I told Tino I'm in. I skipped more pages. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. March 17th, 1967. Tomorrow's the day. Tino got 2 guns. 38 revolvers. He gave me one. I've never held a gun in my life. It's heavy, cold. Tino said it's just to scare people, that we're not going to use them. But I keep thinking, what if we have to? What if someone fights back? Can I? Could I pull the trigger? I haven't slept right for 3 nights. I keep thinking about everything that could go wrong, but also thinking about everything that could go right. $50,000. That's enough to buy a house. Enough to start a new life. Enough to be somebody. Tomorrow morning we meet at 9 o'clock. The bank opens at 10. We go in right when it opens, before it fills with people. 15 minutes maximum, Tino said. 15 minutes and we're out of there, Rich. The next page was written with shakier, more desperate handwriting. March 18, 1967. Night. Everything went wrong. Everything wrong. There's a dead man because of me, because of us, because of me. It started like Tino planned at first. We entered the bank at 10:05. There were few people, 2 tellers, about 4 customers. There was a security guard near the door, but he was old. We thought there wouldn't be a problem. Tino shouted it was a robbery, told everyone to lie on the floor. Billy and Jake went to the tellers to get the money. I kept watch on the people on the floor. Everything was going right. Everything was going like it was supposed to. But then the old security guard moved. He went slowly, trying to reach his gun. Tino saw it, shouted for him to stop. The old man didn't stop. He grabbed the gun, pointed it at Tino, then everything became chaos. I don't even know who shot first. I just know there were shots, several shots. Deafening noise, people screaming. The security guard fell. Blood, so much blood. He lay there on the floor, looking at the ceiling with a hole in his chest. We ran, grabbed the bags, and ran. Got in the car. Jake was driving. He sped off. We separated 3 blocks later. Each one went a different way with their share of the money. I got to the rooming house shaking. I looked inside the bag. Bundles and bundles of money. More money than I'd ever seen in my entire life. But it's all dirty with blood. The old man's blood. He died. I saw it on TV at the bar. Anthony Meadows, 43 years old, left a wife and a son. The son is 15 years old. 15 years old. I killed the father of a 15-year-old child. I didn't shoot, but I was there. I was holding a gun, too. If I had shot, it would be the same. It's my fault just the same. I can't eat, I can't sleep. When I close my eyes, I see the old man's face falling, the blood on the white floor of the bank. I need to disappear. Tino sent word that we have to vanish, go far away, never see each other again, never talk about this. Tomorrow I'm leaving for the South. I'm going to change my name. I'm going to be someone else. I'm going to keep this money and never touch it again. Never again. I closed the notebook. I couldn't read anymore. I was sobbing. The crying came in waves that shook my whole body. I got up from the bed, stumbled to the bathroom, vomited. I stayed there kneeling on the cold floor, hugging the toilet, vomiting everything I had in my stomach and what I didn't have too. Walter, my Walter, the man who slept next to me for 30 years, my daughter's father, the grandfather who never got to know his grandchildren. This man had killed someone, had participated in a robbery that ended in death. And worse, much worse, the Meadows last name, the last name of the murdered security guard, the same last name as Stella's husband. I went back to the bedroom, dragging my feet. I picked up the notebook again. I needed to be sure. I needed to confirm I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't inventing connections that didn't exist. I continued reading. The next pages described Walter's escape, how he took a bus to North Carolina, how he got fake documents, how he changed his name from Walter Silva to Walter Sanders, how he got a job at a factory in Charlotte, how he tried to live with the weight of what he'd done. It's been months since the robbery, he wrote in September 1967. I don't use the money. It's all kept under the mattress. I don't want to touch it. It's blood money, but I also don't know what to do with it. I can't return it, I can't donate it. Anything like that would draw attention. So it stays there reminding me every day of what I did. In 1968, he wrote, I met a girl. She works at the same factory as me. She's pretty, she's good. Sometimes I think about telling her. But how? How do you tell something like that? Better she never knows. Better nobody ever knows. But he didn't marry that girl. The following notes showed he had broken up with her, moved to another city, started over again. And it was in Chicago that he met me. In 1970, at the community dance I mentioned. I read everything, every word. He described our first meeting, described how he had fallen in love with me, how he was afraid I'd discover who he really was, how he decided to use the money from the robbery to buy our house, justifying that so much time had passed that he deserved to have a life, too. Dorothy deserves a real house, he wrote in 1972. She works so hard, never complains. I'm going to use the money to give her a house. It's been 5 years. Nobody's looking anymore. The case is forgotten. I deserve to be happy too. Anthony wouldn't want the money to stay there forever. At least this way, it's being used for something good. I tore that page. I tore it so hard the paper shredded. How dare he? How dare he use the name of the man he helped kill to justify spending that money? I kept reading. He wrote about Stella's birth, about how he had cried with joy, about how he decided he was going to be a better father than his had been, that he was going to give everything to his daughter. The notes became more spaced out over time, years with nothing. Then, a note in 1995, another in 1997, and then came the last one, January 2000. My vision was blurred from crying so much, but I forced my eyes to read. Today, Stella brought a new boyfriend to meet us, Robert. When he said the last name, I thought I was going to faint. Meadows, just like the man who died, just like him. After they left, I went to the library. I looked in old newspaper archives. I discovered that Anthony Meadows, the security guard who died, had a son. The son's name was Brian Meadows. He would be about 48 years old today. I looked in the library records, in phone books. I found a Brian Meadows living in Chicago. I called from a payphone. A woman answered. I asked if Brian was there. She said he had died of a heart attack 2 years ago. I asked if he had left family. She said yes, that he had a son. Robert, it's him. The Robert who's dating my daughter is the grandson of the man I helped kill. I can't tell Stella, I can't. She's so happy, so in love. How am I going to destroy that? How am I going to tell my daughter that her father is a criminal, that her boyfriend's grandfather died because of her father? But I also can't bless this marriage. I can't pretend everything's okay. It's my penance. It's what I deserve. To see my daughter marry into the family of the man I destroyed and not be able to do anything. I put down the notebook. There were still more pages, but I couldn't read anymore. I picked up the last thing that was in the safe, a sealed white envelope. On the envelope was written in Walter's handwriting, "For Dorothy, open when you're 80 years old." I opened the envelope with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. Inside was a letter, several pages. I started to read, and that's when, reading those pages, my world completely collapsed. My hands were shaking so much the paper was wobbling. The letters were dancing in front of me. I had to breathe deeply several times before I could focus. Walter's handwriting was there on those pages, more different, weaker, shakier. He had written this already sick, already knowing he was going to die. I started to read. My Dot, if you're reading this, then you're 80 years old. Congratulations, my love. You made it where I didn't. I hope these 25 years since I left have been good for you. I hope you've enjoyed every day, every moment with Stella, with the grandchildren I'll never meet. I know you must be scared now. You must have seen the photos, the money, the newspapers, the notebook. You must be confused, angry, disgusted. I understand. I deserve all that and more. I'm not who you thought I was. Or rather, I was who you thought I was, but I was also much more. I was a criminal. I was an accomplice to murder. I was a coward who ran and built a life on top of a lie. I stopped reading. I got up from the bed, walked to the window. Outside it was dark, the street empty, the streetlights flickering weakly. I wanted to scream, wanted to throw that letter away, burn the safe, pretend I never opened anything, but I couldn't. I needed to know, needed to understand. I went back to the bed, continued reading. When I met you at that dance, you were so beautiful, light blue dress, remember? You laughed at a silly joke I made, and I thought, this woman is too good for me, too good for what I am, for what I did. But I was selfish. I wanted to have you even though I didn't deserve it. I fell in love with you for real, Dot. It wasn't fake, it wasn't a lie. Everything I felt for you was real. The love was real, the affection was real. The life we built together was real. Even though it was built on a rotten foundation, it was real. I used the money from the robbery to buy our house. You must have realized that by now. The story about the inheritance from the uncle in Texas was a lie. There was never an uncle. There was never an inheritance. It was the bank money, the money that had blood, Anthony Meadows' blood. For years I managed to live with it. I managed to push the guilt into a dark corner of my head and pretend I was someone else. Walter Sanders, hard-working man, family man, honest citizen. I almost believed my own lie. But then came January 2000. Stella brought Robert home. My stomach turned. I knew what was coming next, but reading was different. Reading made everything more real, more concrete. When he said his full name, Robert Meadows, I felt the floor disappear beneath my feet. Meadows. It couldn't be. It couldn't, but I needed to be sure. I went to the library, looked in the archives. I discovered that Anthony, the security guard who died on that terrible day in March 1967, had left a 15-year-old son. Brian. I looked for Brian. I discovered he had died 2 years ago, but had left a son. Robert, civil engineer, living in Chicago. It was him. My daughter was dating the grandson of the man I helped kill. When I discovered this, I wanted to die for real. I wanted to take all my pills and end everything right there. Because it was obvious, right? It was obvious it was punishment. Punishment from God, punishment from the universe. I had destroyed a family in 1967, and now, 33 years later, that same family was entering mine. The irony was so cruel I almost laughed. Almost. But I couldn't. I could only cry. I cried hidden in the bathroom while you made dinner. I cried like a child. And then, 2 weeks later, came the diagnosis. Pancreatic cancer, advanced stage, 6 months to live maximum. More punishment, more penalty. I was going to die. I was going to die and leave my daughter to marry the grandson of the man I killed. And she would never know, never understand. I thought about telling everything right then, calling you and Stella, sitting you both down and confessing. Destroying everything before dying, at least dying with a clear conscience, you know? But I didn't have the courage. I never had courage for anything, I was always a coward. I was a coward when I entered that bank in 1967. I was a coward when I ran. I was a coward when I lied to you. And I was a coward when I decided not to tell. Because if I told, what would happen? Stella would hate me. You would hate me. The wedding would end before it began. Our daughter's life would be destroyed. And all for what? Because her father was no good. Was that fair to her? And there was more. There was Robert. Think about it, If I told the truth, Robert would discover that his grandfather, who he barely knew, died in a bank robbery, that his family struggled because of 4 criminals, and that one of those criminals became his father-in-law. How would he react? How would anyone react? With anger, with hate, with desire for revenge, maybe. And Stella would be in the middle, divided between the father she always loved and the man she chose to spend her life with. There was no way that could work out. There wasn't. So I decided to keep the secret, to die with the secret, to let Stella be happy, to let Robert be happy, to let you take care of our daughter and grandchildren without having to carry the weight of the truth. I had to stop again. My chest was tight. It hurt so much I thought I was going to have a heart attack right there. I got up, went to the kitchen, drank water straight from the faucet, cold water that went down burning, but didn't relieve anything. Walter had chosen to lie, had chosen to die lying, and had chosen this thinking he was protecting Stella. Or was he protecting himself, protecting his image? I didn't know anymore, didn't know what to think. I went back to the bedroom. The letter had more pages. I continued. But the truth is too heavy to die with me, I tried. I tried to take it to the grave, but I couldn't because there are things that need to be resolved, things only you can resolve. That's why I asked you to open this safe at 80 years old. Not before, not after. Let me explain why. If you had opened it earlier, say at 60, 65 years old, you would still have the strength to do something stupid. You'd want to tell Stella, you'd want to confront Robert, you'd want justice, I don't know. And that would destroy everything. It would destroy their marriage, the family, the grandchildren. But at 80, things are different. At 80 years old, Stella will already be in her 50s, will have been married for 25 years. The grandchildren will already be adults. The family will already be consolidated, strong, rooted. It's no longer possible to undo it. It's no longer possible to go back. And you, at 80 years old, will already have the wisdom I never had. You'll know that some truths do more harm than good, that some lies are necessary to protect those we love. I'm giving you a choice, a choice I didn't have. You can tell Stella the truth. You can show these photos, these newspapers, this letter. You can destroy the memory she has of me. You can end her marriage. It's your right. Or you can do what I couldn't do. You can forgive. You can keep this secret. You can let Stella continue happy without ever knowing. You can protect her from the truth that will only hurt. The choice is yours, and I'll respect any decision you make, because I don't deserve to ask for anything. I don't deserve your understanding, your forgiveness, nothing. But there's one thing I need you to do, please. It's the only thing I'll ask of you. My heart raced. I turned the page quickly. I needed to know what he was going to ask. In the safe, there's still money. Not much, because I used most of it to buy the house and other things over the years, but there's still some bundles. Back when I kept it, it was worth a lot. Today, I don't know. But it's what there is. I want you to donate this money to Anthony's family anonymously, without saying who you are, without explaining anything. I know it won't repair what I did. It won't bring Anthony back. It won't give back the years his widow spent alone raising Brian. It won't give back the father Brian lost. It won't give back the grandfather Robert barely knew. But it's something. It's the minimum. It's the only thing I can do now, even dead. Look for Anthony's widow. Her name is Eleanor Meadows. She should still be alive. She must be about 75 years old now when you're reading this. If she's already died, give it to Robert. Make up a story. Say it's a bank restitution, a delayed compensation, anything. But give it to them. Please. It's the last thing I'll ask of you. The only thing. Do this for me. Or not for me. Do it for the memory of the man who died, for the 15-year-old boy who was left without a father, for the widow who struggled. Do what I should have done in 1967 and didn't have the courage. Tears were flowing so much they were dripping on the letter, blurring the ink. I didn't try to hold them back anymore. I let them fall. Now I want to tell you something, the most important thing. I loved you, Dorothy. I loved you with every rotten piece of my soul. You were the only good thing that happened in my life. You and Stella. When I was with you, I could forget. I could just be Walter. Not the criminal, not the fugitive, not the murderer. Just Walter who loved Dot, Walter who played with Stella, Walter who fixed things around the house, who complained about traffic, who laughed at your bad jokes. You gave me 30 years of peace, Dot. 30 years where I could pretend to be a decent person, and even though it was pretend, even though it was a lie, they were the best years of my life. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve anything. But if somewhere in your heart you can keep a little piece of good memory of me, just a tiny piece, I'll be grateful. Wherever I am now, I'll be grateful. I'm sorry for everything, my love. Sorry for lying. Sorry for using you to hide. Sorry for building our life on top of blood and robbery. Sorry for loving you even though I didn't deserve it. And sorry for being a coward to the end. For not having the courage to tell you this in life. For throwing this weight on you now, so many years later. You deserved a better man, deserved a better life, deserved the truth from the beginning. But at least I can give you this, the freedom to choose, to decide whether to tell or not tell, whether to forgive or not forgive, whether to donate the money or burn everything. Life is yours now, Dot. It always was. I was just passing through. Take care of Stella. Take care of the grandchildren. Be happy. You deserve it. With all the love a bad man can have, Walter. I finished reading. The letter fell from my hand. I stayed there sitting, staring at nothing. For how long? I don't know. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. Outside, the day was beginning to get light. I had spent the whole night awake, reading, crying, trying to process. I looked at the safe still open in front of me, the scattered photos, the yellowed newspapers, the notebook, the letter, the money. I picked up one of the bundles of bills, ran my finger over the old, fragile notes. How much was this worth today? Probably not much. The bills from the 60s weren't worth what they used to be, but it wasn't about the value, was it? It never was. It was about what that money represented. It was about the man who died. It was about the destroyed family. It was about the lie that sustained my entire life. I got up, my body ached, every bone, every muscle. I went to the bedroom mirror. I looked at myself. An 80-year-old woman looked back at me. White hair, face full of wrinkles, eyes red from crying so much. Who was this woman? Dorothy Sanders, widow of Walter Sanders, or Dorothy, wife of a criminal who wasn't even really named Sanders? I didn't know anymore. I went back to the safe, picked up the newspaper clippings, read again. Anthony Meadows, 43 years old, shot dead. I read about the widow Eleanor. I read about the son Brian, 15 years old. Brian, who had died of a heart attack before I met him. Brian, who was Robert's father. Robert, who was married to my Stella. Robert, who was the father of my grandchildren. My grandchildren had Anthony's blood, had the blood of the man Walter helped kill, and had Walter's blood too through Stella. Victim and killer mixed in the same family, at the same Christmas table, at the same birthday parties, and nobody knew, nobody except me. I picked up the letter again, reread his request. Donate the money to Eleanor anonymously. Was she still alive? Eleanor Meadows. If she was alive, she'd have to be about 75, 76 years old now. It was possible. And if she had died? Walter had said to give it to Robert, to my son-in-law, to the father of my grandchildren. Make up a story about bank compensation. How was I going to do that? How was I going to look Robert in the face and hand over blood money to him without him knowing it was blood money, without him knowing his grandfather died because of my husband? And Stella, my daughter, my girl. How was I going to look at her from now on? How was I going to hug her, talk to her, smile at her, knowing what I knew? Knowing her father, the man she admired, that she loved, was a criminal. Walter had said the choice was mine, that I could tell or not tell, that at 80 years old I would have the wisdom to decide, but I didn't feel wise. I felt old, tired, broken. I looked at the safe again, all those things inside, all those truths, all those lies. I had a decision to make, the biggest decision of my life, and I had no idea what to do. I didn't sleep. How could I sleep? I sat on the bed until the sun came up completely. I put everything back in the safe, the photos, the newspapers, the notebook, the letter. I left only one bundle of money out. I looked at those old bills, trying to imagine if they were still worth anything. At 7 in the morning, my phone rang. It was Stella. Mom, good morning. How are you feeling? Did you enjoy your birthday yesterday? Her voice, sweet, animated. My daughter, who didn't know anything, who had never suspected anything. I did, my daughter, I managed to answer. My voice came out hoarse, broken. I cleared my throat. I'm just a little tired. I can imagine, Mom. You're not young anymore. Rest today, okay? Tomorrow I'll come by for lunch. Tomorrow she was coming tomorrow. How was I going to look at her? How? Okay, daughter. Kiss. Kiss, Mom. I love you. I love you too. I hung up the phone and started crying again. I cried so much in the last hours I thought I had no more tears, but I did. There were always more. I got up from the bed. My body complained with every movement. 80 years weighs, and even more when you spend the night without sleeping, without eating, processing the worst news of your life. I went to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror. I looked horrible. Swollen eyes, red, pale face. It looked like I'd aged 10 years in one night. I took a shower, hot water. I stayed there under the shower, letting the water fall, trying to wash something that couldn't be washed. The water didn't clean the dirt I felt inside. When I got out of the shower, I went to make coffee. Strong coffee, very strong. I sat at the kitchen table. The same table where I had coffee with Walter for 30 years. The table he bought with stolen money. The table that witnessed all our conversations, all our meals, all our silences. I looked around. The refrigerator, the stove, the cabinet, the pots hanging, everything bought with that money, everything built on top of lies and blood. I picked up one of the cups, remembered the day we bought them. Walter had given me a set of porcelain cups with painted flowers for my birthday. I thought they were so beautiful, had taken care of them so carefully all these years. Blood money. I let the cup fall. It hit the floor and shattered. Pieces of porcelain scattered across the kitchen floor. I looked at the shards and thought, that's how I am, shattered. I spent the day trying to process, trying to understand, trying to decide. Memories came back different now. Every memory I had of Walter came with a shadow, with a question mark. I remembered when we moved to the new house in 1972. I was so happy. I walked through the empty rooms, imagining how I would decorate each one. Walter stayed at the door, quiet, watching. I asked if he wasn't happy. He said he was, but there was a sadness in his eyes I didn't understand at the time. Now I understood. He was happy and sad at the same time. Happy to give me that, sad because he knew how he got it. I remembered Stella's birth. I had 18 hours of labor. Walter stayed the whole time in the hospital hallway waiting. When the nurse came out to say she was born, that it was a girl, that everything was fine, I heard him cry from inside, cry loudly, without shame. When he came into the room to see me, to see the baby, he had a swollen face from crying so much. He picked up Stella so carefully, as if she would break, and said, "She's perfect, too perfect for me." At the time I thought it was cute. I thought he was just emotional being a father for the first time, but now I understood. He thought he didn't deserve it. Didn't deserve that beautiful, pure, innocent child. Didn't deserve to be a father. Didn't deserve happiness. I remembered all the times he hugged me at night when he thought I was sleeping. He hugged me tight and stayed like that, holding me, as if I was going to disappear. Sometimes I felt him trembling. I thought it was cold. I pulled the blanket up more. It wasn't cold. It was fear. It was guilt. It was his weight using me as an anchor so he wouldn't sink completely. Every good memory now had a bitter taste. Every happy moment had been built on someone else's tragedy. The day went by slowly, painfully slowly. I couldn't eat, couldn't do anything, just sat there thinking. In the late afternoon, I made a decision, at least a small decision to start with. I needed to know if Eleanor was still alive. I turned on the computer that Stella had given me last Christmas. She had taught me to use it, but I only knew the basics. Go on the internet, search for things. I typed Eleanor Meadows, Chicago. Several results appeared, old news about the robbery. Some mentioned her, the widow, but nothing recent. Nothing that told me if she was still alive. I tried another way. I went to a people search site. I put in the full name, the approximate age, 75 to 80 years, Chicago. 3 results appeared. 3 women with that name in that age range in Chicago. I looked at the addresses. One was on the south side, another on the west side, another in the suburbs. How was I going to know which was the right one? How was I going to do this without drawing attention, without raising suspicion? I couldn't just show up at her house, couldn't call, couldn't ask anyone. I stared at the computer screen until it went dark by itself. At night, Stella called me again. "Mom, just calling to see how you are. Did you eat properly? I did, daughter. Lie. I hadn't eaten anything all day. That's good. Tomorrow I'll bring a cake I made today. You're going to love it. Thank you, my daughter. Mom, your voice sounds strange. Is everything really okay? My heart tightened. She was always like this, always noticed when something was wrong with me. Since she was little, she'd come, rest her little head on my shoulder and ask, "Mommy sad?" "I'm just tired, Stella. Age, you know? You need to take better care of your health. Want me to make a doctor's appointment?" "No need, daughter. We'll talk better tomorrow." When I hung up, I kept looking at the phone. My daughter, my Stella, so worried about me, so caring, so innocent of everything. Was Walter right? Would telling the truth only destroy her? Destroy the memory she had of her father? Destroy her peace? She was 50 years old, had been married for 25 years, had 3 beautiful children, had a good, stable life. Why would I drop a bomb like that in the middle of everything? But at the same time, didn't she deserve to know? Didn't she have the right to know who her father really was? Who she shared a house with for 25 years of her life? And Robert, my son-in-law, who called me Mom with so much affection, who treated me so well, didn't he deserve to know that his father-in-law had participated in the murder of his grandfather? My God, what a situation, what an impossible situation. I spent another sleepless night. I kept walking through the house, through the rooms, looking at things, at every object, every piece of furniture, every photo on the wall. I stopped in front of a photo from Stella's wedding. She looked beautiful in white. Walter next to her in a suit, with that small smile of his. Robert on the other side, holding her hand. That day, Walter had made a short speech because he was never one for many words, but it was moving. He had said that Stella was the pride of his life, that Robert was a lucky man, that he wished all the happiness in the world for them both. And at the end, his voice had failed. He had looked at Robert and said, "Take good care of her, that's all I ask." Everyone thought it was beautiful. I cried. Stella cried. Robert promised he would take care of her. But now I understood what was really behind those words. It wasn't just a father giving away his daughter. It was a man loaded with guilt, asking his victim's grandson to take care of his daughter. It was a disguised plea for forgiveness, a plea that Robert would never understand. I took the photo off the wall, looked closely at Walter's face, tried to see something there, some sign, some clue that he was a criminal, but there was nothing. He looked normal, a proud father, a happy father-in-law, an ordinary man. And maybe that was the scariest part, that a person could carry such a horrible secret and seem completely normal. Could sleep next to you every night, could kiss you every morning, could raise a daughter with you and you didn't know anything. How could I have lived with him for 30 years and not noticed, not suspected, not seen anything? Was I stupid? Did I not want to see? Were there signs and I ignored them? I kept searching in my memory, looking for clues I'd missed, for strange moments, for suspicious statements. There was that time, must have been 1985 or 86, when a report about bank robberies was on TV. Walter got up and turned off the TV, said it was too violent, that he didn't want to watch. There was that time when Stella, still very small, asked, "Dad, have you ever done something really wrong?" He was silent, so long in silence that I nudged him. Then he said, "Everyone has done something wrong, daughter. The important thing is to learn." There was that time we ran into someone he knew from his factory days. The man looked at him and said, "Walter Sanders, I thought your name was..." And Walter cut him off quickly. "I'm also known as Silva. Walter Silva Sanders, compound last name." The man thought it was strange, but let it go. There were small signs, spaced out, but there were. And I never saw them, never wanted to see them. In the morning I got ready as best I could. I hid the dark circles with makeup. I combed my hair, put on nice clothes. I needed to look normal when Stella arrived. She showed up at noon on the dot, brought cake, brought fruit, brought affection. "Mom, let me look at you. Wow, you look tired." "Did you sleep badly?" "A little," I admitted. Must be age. I'll make you some tea. That chamomile one you like. We stayed in the kitchen talking. She talked about the kids. The oldest had just gotten a new job. The middle one was dating. The youngest was preparing for college entrance exams. Robert is working too much, she commented. He took on a big project, gets home late every day. I worry. Robert. Every time she talked about him, my stomach turned. How's his family? I asked, trying to seem casual. His mother is well, called last week, wants to come spend a few days here next month. And his grandmother on his father's side, I ventured. Stella looked at me surprised. Grandmother? Wow, Mom. You never asked about her before. I forced a smile. Just an old woman's curiosity. Is she still alive? Yes, Mrs. Eleanor. Robert visits her from time to time. She lives alone on the south side. She's quite elderly, in her 80s. Widowed since Robert was a little kid. I think he never really got to know his grandfather. His dad died young too. Eleanor, still alive, south side, in her 80s. It was her. It had to be her. That's good that she's still well, I managed to say. We spent the afternoon together. Stella stayed until 5. When she left, she hugged me tight. Mom, anything at all, you call me, okay? Anytime I'll come running. I know, daughter, I know. When the door closed, I went back to the bedroom, opened the safe again, took out the bundles of money, counted. 6 bundles in all, $100 bills from the 60s. I went online again, looked up currency value. How much was money from 1967 worth today? With inflation, with everything, I found information. The bills themselves, as collectibles, might be worth something. I found a coin and currency dealer downtown that bought old bills. The next day, I took a bus. It had been a long time since I'd ridden a bus alone. The city was different. So many people, so much noise, so much movement. I got to the currency dealer. An elderly man helped me. I showed him the bills. He looked carefully. These are quite old, he said, from 1967, in good condition. How much are they worth? I asked. He did calculations. For a collector, depending on the serial numbers, they could be worth more. But if you want to sell quickly, I can give you $18,000 for the whole lot. $18,000? Less than I thought, but it was what it was. I'll take it. He paid me in cash. $100 bills, brand new, clean, without blood. At least, no visible blood. I put the money in my purse. I went home. Now I had real money. Now I needed courage to do what had to be done. Courage to go to the house of the woman my husband had made a widow. Courage to look at her, even from afar, and know that I lived a life built on top of her misfortune. Courage to try somehow to repair the irreparable. It took me 3 days to gather courage, 3 days looking at that money stored in the drawer. $18,000. The price of a life, the price of my conscience, the price of 58 years of widowhood for a woman I never knew. On the 3rd day, I woke up early. I put the money inside a manila envelope. I wrote on the outside only, for Eleanor Meadows. Nothing more, no return address, no explanation. I put on my simplest clothes, got my purse, looked in the mirror. An 80-year-old lady stared back at me, tired, scared, but determined. I called a taxi, gave the address I had found. Southside, a neighborhood I'd never been to in my life. The driver was young, tried to make conversation, asked if I was visiting someone. I answered yes, an old acquaintance, lie on top of lie. I was getting good at this, just like Walter. The trip took almost an hour. Traffic was terrible. I sat there in the back seat, holding my purse tightly, feeling the weight of the envelope. My heart was beating so hard I thought it would come out of my chest. We arrived at a narrow street, old houses stuck together, iron gates, peeling walls. The taxi stopped in front of number 247. "This is it, ma'am," the driver said. I looked out the window. The house was small, single-story faded green paint. It had a small rusted iron gate and a window with bars. The sidewalk was cracked, with weeds growing between the stones. I paid the driver, got out of the car. He drove away. I stood there on the sidewalk, looking at that house. Inside there lived Eleanor Meadows, the woman who lost her husband in 1967, the woman who raised her son alone, the woman who struggled while I lived comfortably in my house, bought with her husband's blood money. My legs were shaking so much I needed to hold on to the pole. I took a deep breath. I walked to the gate. It creaked when I pushed it. It wasn't locked. The front yard was tiny. There were some pots with wilted plants, an old mat at the entrance. The wooden door was closed. I was going to leave the envelope right there on the doorstep when I heard noise from inside. Slow, dragging steps. Someone was coming. My heart raced. Should I run? Should I leave before it opened? But my feet wouldn't move. I stood there paralyzed, holding the envelope. The door opened and I saw her. Eleanor Meadows. She was a small woman, very small, bent by age, all white hair, tied in a messy bun, wrinkled skin, spotted, sunken eyes, tired. She wore simple clothes, a flowered cotton dress, already faded from so much washing. She looked at me surprised. Yes? Can I help you? Her voice was thin, weak, but there was a sweetness there, a kindness. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. I stood there like a statue, just looking at her. Are you okay? She asked, worried. Do you want to come in, have some water? I managed to shake my head. No, I don't need to. I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the deep wrinkles around her eyes. I saw her hands full of age spots, trembling slightly, holding the door. I saw the simplicity of everything, the discreet poverty, but present. This woman had lost everything in 1967 and never recovered. I came to bring something for you, I managed to say. I held out the envelope. It's a restitution from the bank. She frowned. Bank? What bank? From Bank of America, from 1967, a settlement they're making on old cases. My son works there, asked me to deliver it personally. The lies came out easy now, too easy. Eleanor took the envelope, looked at it confused. 1967, but that was so long ago. Yes, old cases that were archived. Just open it. Everything's explained. There wasn't. There was nothing explained, just money. But she would find that out when she opened it. I don't know what to say, she murmured. She opened the envelope right there, saw the bundles of bills. Her eyes widened. My God, but this is a lot of money. It's what was owed, I said. And in a way it was true. She looked up at me. There were tears there. You don't know what this means. I have overdue bills, medicine I can't buy. The pension doesn't cover everything. This will help so much. My chest hurt. It hurt physically, as if someone was squeezing my heart with both hands. I'm glad I could help, I whispered. She wiped the tears with the back of her hand. Come in, please. Let me make you some coffee. It's the least I can do. No, I need to go. I have other addresses to visit. At least tell me your name so I can thank you properly. I looked at that woman, Eleanor, widow of the man my husband helped kill, grandmother of my grandchildren, part of my family without knowing. Mary, I lied. My name is Mary. Miss Mary, she took my hand. Her hand was cold, bony, but the grip was firm. Thank you so much. You don't know, but this is a real blessing. God bless you. I almost collapsed right there, almost fell to my knees and confessed everything. Almost screamed that I didn't deserve to be blessed, that I was the wife of a murderer, that money had blood, had guilt, had so much weight I couldn't breathe right anymore. But I didn't do any of that. I just squeezed her hand back and said, Take care, Mrs. Eleanor. I walked away quickly. I passed through the little gate, the cracked sidewalk, turned the corner, and only then broke down. I sat on the curb and cried. I cried like a child, sobbing loudly, not caring who passed by. A woman stopped and asked if I was okay. I waved yes. She went on her way. I stayed there I don't know how long crying, letting it all out. All the pain, all the guilt, all the anger, all the weight of those impossible days. When I could stop, I took my phone, called another taxi, went home. I got home in the late afternoon. The house was silent, empty, as always. I went straight to the bedroom, to the safe still open on the bed, the photos, the newspapers, the notebook, the letter. I took everything, took it to the kitchen, put it in the sink, lit a match, let the fire catch the paper. I watched the photos of young Walter curl up, turn black, turn to ash. I watched the newspaper clippings turn to smoke. I watched the notebook with his confessions fall apart page by page. I only kept the letter, his last letter to me. That one I folded and kept in my pocket. That one I would need to read many times until I understood, until I accepted, until I forgave, if I ever could. I threw the ashes in the trash, washed the sink, cleaned everything. The evidence was gone. Now it only existed in my memory, and in memory I could decide what to do with it. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table as always. I stayed there thinking about Stella, the grandchildren, Robert, Eleanor, Walter, everything. The phone rang. It was Stella again. "Mom, is everything okay? It's been 2 days since I really talked to you. Are you sure you're okay?" My daughter, always noticing, always caring. "Stella," I started. I stopped, took a deep breath. "I love you. You know that, right?" She laughed on the other end. "I know, Mom. I love you too. Where's this coming from now?" I just needed to say it. I needed you to know. "Okay, Mom. You're worrying me. I'm coming over tomorrow." "You don't need to, daughter. I was just thinking about life, about how time passes quickly, about how things change." "You're getting philosophical in your old age," she joked. "Maybe." After I hung up, I kept looking at the phone. My daughter, my most precious thing. I could tell her, could show her the letter, could explain everything. But why? To destroy the memory she had of her father, to put a weight on her that wasn't hers to carry, to destroy her marriage when she discovered she was married to the grandson of her father's victim? No. Walter was right about one thing. Some truths do more harm than good. He was a coward for not telling. But maybe keeping this secret was the bravest thing I could do now. Not for him, not to protect his memory, but for her, for my Stella, for my grandchildren, for the family that exists now, strong, happy, united. A family that has Anthony's blood and Walter's blood running together in the children's veins. Victim and aggressor finally united, finally at peace. I was going to carry this alone. It was my cross now, my burden. But at least I had done what he couldn't do. I had returned the money. I had looked into the widow's eyes. I had tried, in some small and insufficient way, to repair. In the following days, I tried to return to routine. Stella came for lunch. She brought the grandchildren. We laughed, talked, ate cake. I looked at them, all sitting at my table. Stella, Robert, the children. Robert told a funny story from work. Everyone laughed. He was a good man, hard-working, honest. He took good care of my daughter, loved his children. His grandfather would be proud. Anthony Meadows died trying to protect the bank, died doing his duty, leaving a widow and a 15-year-old son. But from that son came Robert. And from Robert came these 3 beautiful grandchildren who were now in front of me eating cake, making noise, filling my house with life. Life continues even after tragedy, even after the worst. Life insists on continuing. At night, after everyone left, I went to the bedroom. I took Walter's letter from my pocket, read it again. "Sorry for everything, my love." I looked at his photo on the nightstand, the photo I'd had for years. Him smiling in a suit at Stella's wedding. "You were an idiot," I said out loud to the portrait. A cowardly idiot who ruined everything, who built our life on top of lies, who made me an accomplice without knowing. Tears were flowing, but I kept talking. You used me, used our daughter, used everything to hide from what you did. I picked up the photo, held it with both hands. But I also loved you, Walter. Loved you for real. And the moments we lived together were real. Stella is real. The grandchildren are real. All of this is real, even though it was born from something rotten. I hugged the photo against my chest. I don't know if I can completely forgive you. I don't know if I ever will. But I'm going to try. I'm going to try, because otherwise this anger, this hurt will destroy me too. And I can't let that happen. I still have people to take care of. I still have life ahead of me. I put the photo back in place. So I'm going to keep your secret. I'm going to protect our daughter from this truth. I'm going to let her continue loving you like she always did. I'm going to let the grandchildren continue being proud of the grandfather they never knew. I picked up the letter, folded it again, put it in the back of the drawer. And as for you and me, we'll settle this in the next life. If there is another life, if there is justice there. I lay in bed, closed my eyes, and for the first time in weeks I managed to sleep. I dreamed of Walter, but not the Walter from the photo, the young Walter from the photos in the safe, the one with the lost, scared look. In the dream, he was sitting on a park bench alone. I approached. "Why did you do this?" I asked. "Because I was young, stupid. I thought money solved everything." "You killed a man." "I know. I carry that every day, every hour until I die. And after I die too. And me and our daughter, didn't we deserve to know?" "You did, but I was afraid. Afraid of losing you. Afraid of you hating me. I was selfish to the end." In the dream, I sat next to him on the bench. "You were an idiot." "I was. But you were also a good father, a good husband in a crooked way, but you were." "I tried to be. Stella is fine, has a beautiful family, is happy." "I know, I see. From where I am, I see everything, and I thank God every day that she doesn't know, that she stays happy. I'm going to keep it that way. I'm going to keep your secret." "Thank you, Dot. I don't deserve it. But thank you." I woke up with the sun coming through the window, my face wet. I had cried in my sleep, but it was a different cry, lighter, less painful. I got up, made coffee, sat on the porch. The day was beautiful, blue sky, birds singing, life continuing. I picked up my phone, called Stella. "Mom, good morning. Everything okay?" "Everything's fine, daughter. I was thinking here. How about you all come for lunch on Sunday? I'll make that pasta you like." "Really? Are you feeling well enough to cook?" "I'm great, wanting to have my family close by." "Oh, Mom, how wonderful. We'll come. The kids will love it." I hung up smiling. Sunday came sunny. I woke up early, went to the market, bought everything I needed. I came home and started cooking. Pasta, homemade tomato sauce, meatballs, salad, garlic bread, dessert. At noon, they all arrived. Stella with Robert, the 3 noisy, wonderful grandchildren. The house filled with life, with laughter, with conversation, with hugs. We all sat down to eat. The table full, glasses clinking, silverware clinking, voices overlapping. I looked around at each face, each smile. My daughter, so much like me, so much like Walter too in her eyes, in the way she frowned. Robert, good man, good father, not knowing that his grandfather's blood ran together with my husband's blood in his children. The grandchildren, beautiful, innocent, full of future ahead of them. And me, Dorothy, 80 years old, widow, grandmother, keeper of secrets. "Mom, are you okay?" Stella asked. "You're quiet." I wiped a tear that had escaped. "I'm great, daughter, just happy. Happy to have you all here." "We also love being here, Mom." I raised my glass. A toast to family, which is the only thing that matters in the end. Everyone raised their glasses. We toasted. And in that moment, I decided. I decided to forgive Walter, not because he deserved it, but because I deserved peace. I decided to keep the secret, not to protect him, but to protect them. I decided to live the time I have left with lightness, with love, with gratitude for what I have, even knowing how it was obtained. I decided that some truths can stay buried, that some lies are necessary, that forgiveness doesn't need to be deserved to be given. Because in the end, in the very end, what remains isn't the money, isn't the lie, isn't the crime. What remains is love. Crooked, imperfect, built on a rotten foundation, but still love. And that love between me and Walter, between us and Stella, between all of us and these children at the table, that love is worth more than any truth. So I'm going to carry this weight to the end. I'm going to carry it alone so they don't have to. It's my choice, my cross, my redemption. And maybe, just maybe, it's also my way of loving. Of loving the man who was good and bad at the same time. Of loving the daughter who deserves to continue happy. Of loving the family that exists despite everything. Of loving life that continues, always continues, even after the worst, even after everything,